The conference room was a glass box suspended above the city, sunlight spilling across polished marble and the gleaming screens filled with numbers. Adrian Hale stood at the head of the table, posture sharp, voice sharper. His executives sat in immaculate lines, every one of them tense, hungry for his approval, terrified of his disappointment. The phone on his desk buzzed again. And again. And again. At first, he didn't notice. Adrian's world had always been divided into two spheres: business, which demanded everything from him, and everything else, which he assumed would wait. Liana had always waited. She never complained, never accused him, never demanded more than he offered. He trusted her patience like he trusted gravity. The buzzing grew louder. His assistant, Mara, cast a nervous glance toward the vibrating device on the shelf behind him. Even the board members shifted, exchanging brief looks. Everyone knew who was calling. Everyone but the man himself seemed to feel the wrongness in the air. Finally, Adrian turned, annoyance flickering across his face. He didn't walk over. He didn't even lift the phone. He just glanced at the screen, saw her name, and exhaled sharply through his nose. "She knows I'm in a meeting." Mara stepped forward slightly. "Sir, it's the 8th time." He gave her a cold look that made her shrink back. "She gets anxious. She's pregnant. It's normal." But it wasn't normal. Not today. Not with the way Liana was gripping the kitchen counter at home, her breath hitching as another jolt of pain ripped through her abdomen. She had dialed him with trembling fingers, hoping he'd just hear her voice and know something was wrong. "Please pick up. Please." Her voice had been soft, barely a whisper, but the phone never reached his ear. In the boardroom, Adrian tapped the screen once, silencing the call entirely. The buzzing stopped. The room relaxed. He didn't. "Where were we?" he asked, tone clipped. But Mara couldn't focus. She kept glancing at his phone, dread pooling in her stomach. She remembered the faint swelling around Liana's ankles last week, the way she'd pressed a hand to her back and moved slower than usual. She remembered the forced smile when she said she was fine. "Sir," she tried again, voice soft, "maybe it's urgent." Adrian didn't even turn. Nothing is more urgent than securing this deal. But miles away, Liana was on her knees on the kitchen floor, phone clutched to her chest, trying to breathe through the agony she didn't understand. "Adrian," she whispered into the ringing tone. "I'm scared." Back in the room of glass and power, he didn't hear the fear in her voice or the slight break in her breathing. He only saw numbers, graphs, deadlines. He didn't see the danger swelling inside her body. He didn't feel the panic building in her heart. He didn't understand that the one call he chose to ignore was the only one that truly mattered. And as he turned back to his presentation, dismissing his wife's desperate attempts to reach him, the future he believed was secure began quietly collapsing without him. "If you want scene 2 expanded as well, just tell me." Mara waited until the elevator doors began to close before she let out the breath she'd been holding. She hoped, prayed, he would call his wife as soon as he stepped outside the meeting room. But she knew him. Adrian Hale didn't break focus. Not for storms, not for crises, not for the woman carrying his child. Inside the elevator, Adrian loosened his tie with a sigh of irritation. His mind buzzed with numbers and investor demands, not with worry. He didn't replay her missed calls. He didn't wonder why she'd reached out so many times. He simply assumed she was lonely or nervous, wanting reassurance from the man who had grown accustomed to giving her the bare minimum. He pulled out his phone as the elevator descended, scrolling through emails. No voicemail, no text. He didn't notice how unusual that was. Liana always sent a message after a missed call. Always. But at that very moment, she was gripping her car's steering wheel, knuckles white, vision shaking. She should have stayed home. She should have called an ambulance. But panic blurred her logic, pain drowned her thoughts, and the only person she could think to reach was the husband who kept silencing her calls. The contractions weren't normal. Not this sharp, not this early, not this consuming. She gasped as another bolt of pain shot through her abdomen, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone again. The seatbelt pressed against her stomach and made everything worse. "Please answer. Just this once." Her voice cracked with fear. Her baby gave one hard, desperate kick, and the force of it nearly made her scream. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Tears blurred her vision as she tried to blink the road back into focus. She needed the hospital. She needed help. She needed him. She tried calling again. In the lobby of the Hale Tower, Adrian looked at the screen as it lit up. He saw her name, saw the time, saw the multiple missed calls stacked beneath it. And once again, he pressed the side button, silencing it. He didn't hear the tremble in her breath. He didn't hear the faint sob hidden in the background. He didn't hear the word she whispered before the call cut, "Goodbye." At the intersection by the hospital, Liana's world dimmed. The pain was too intense now, swallowing her whole. She blinked slowly, her head falling forward. Her foot slipped from the brake. Her car rolled, softly, gently, into a stop sign. A pedestrian saw her slumped over the wheel and shouted for help. Within seconds, strangers were pulling the door open, calling her name, shaking her lightly. She didn't respond. The phone lay on the floor, screen cracked, still showing Adrian's contact. The ambulance arrived quickly. Paramedics moved with urgency, voices sharp and precise. Female, late 20s, 8 months pregnant, unresponsive, possible placental abruption. Fetal heart rate unstable. We need to move. But as they lifted her onto the stretcher, her hand slipped off her belly, limp and cold. And miles away, in the comfort of a chauffeured town car, Adrian Hale scrolled through documents, unaware that his wife was fighting for breath and his baby was slipping away second by precious second. If you want me to expand scene 3 too, just say so. The moment Adrian stepped through the front door, he knew something was wrong. The air felt heavy, still, like the whole house was holding its breath. He called her name once, expecting her soft voice to float back from the living room. Nothing. He walked farther inside. The kitchen light was still on. The dish towel lay crumpled on the floor, like it had been dropped mid-movement. Beside it, a faint smear of something dark caught the light. He froze, leaned down, touched it with shaking fingers. Blood. He stood up so abruptly the stool by the counter rattled against the island. His chest tightened. His skin went cold. Liana. The silence that answered was louder than any scream. He rushed through the rooms, living room, hallway, bedroom, finding them all in the same eerie stillness. Her purse sat open on the counter. Her favorite cardigan draped over the armchair. A cup of tea half finished on the nightstand. Everything screaming one thing. She had left in a hurry. In pain. In fear. His phone vibrated in his hand, and when he saw Mara's name, dread clawed up his spine. "Sir." Her voice trembled. "There's been a report. A woman, heavily pregnant. Unresponsive. Near the hospital." His pulse stopped. "Describe her," he forced out. "Dark hair. Light blue dress. The one your wife wore last week." He didn't hear the rest. It was all a blur. His heart hammering so violently it felt like it might crack his ribs, his breath failing to reach his lungs, the room spinning. He bolted out the door and into the driveway. "Drive," he barked as he threw himself into the car. But the driver had already slammed his foot on the accelerator, sensing the emergency in his employer's shaking hands and pale face. Every streetlight they passed was a countdown. Every second a blade pressing deeper into him. Adrian's mind raced with every image he didn't want to see. Liana crying, Liana alone, Liana hurt. And beneath it, a terror that made his blood roar, the baby. He remembered her smiling when she first placed his hand on her belly. He remembered the tiny kicks they'd felt at night. He remembered promising her, "I'll always protect both of you." And then he remembered every call he ignored today. The 18 missed calls he shrugged off. The tone in Mara's voice he dismissed. The fear he never paused to consider. The car screeched to a stop at the hospital entrance. He didn't wait. He ran so fast he nearly slipped, crashing through the sliding doors, breathless, wild-eyed. A nurse rushed forward. "Mr. Hale, your wife, she's in critical condition. Emergency surgery. Please come with me." His heart plummeted. "My baby. Is my baby." But the nurse hesitated, and the world seemed to tilt. That hesitation was a punch to the gut. A warning he wasn't ready for. He followed her down the hallway, legs barely carrying him, as alarms blared in the distance and doctors shouted orders behind closed doors. Every sound felt like it belonged to his wife. Every urgent voice like someone fighting to bring her back. He stopped outside the operating room, staring through a window fogged with heat and motion. He saw flashes of blue gowns, gloved hands, and frantic movement around a small, still body. His wife, his child, both slipping between his fingers while he had been focused on a meeting. He pressed a trembling hand to the cold glass, whispering the only words he could form. "Please, please don't take them from me. If you want scene 4 expanded, just say the word." The surgeon emerged with slow, heavy steps, pulling off his gloves as though every movement weighed him down. Adrian shot to his feet so quickly his knees hit the metal chair, sending it clattering against the wall. His breathing came in ragged bursts. "Tell me," Adrian demanded, though the words trembled. "My wife, my baby, tell me there." The doctor didn't rush to answer. He looked at Adrian with the same expression one might give a man already breaking. "Mr. Hale, your wife is alive." The relief that hit Adrian lasted only half a second. "But she lost a tremendous amount of blood. We've stabilized her, but her body is very weak. She's unconscious. She'll be taken to ICU shortly." Adrian swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the counter to stay upright. "And my son," his voice cracked mid-word. "Please, my son." The doctor exhaled slowly, too slowly, the kind of exhale that prepares the listener for impact. He looked down before he looked up, and that was all it took for Adrian's chest to cave inward. "We did everything we could. But the placental abruption was severe. The baby lost oxygen for far too long." "No," Adrian whispered, shaking his head violently. "No, no, no, no." He stepped back, bumping into the wall as if trying to escape the words chasing him. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Hale. We couldn't save him." The world shattered. Sound disappeared. The hallway dissolved. The doctor's voice faded into an echo. Adrian felt his legs buckle, but he didn't feel the floor when he dropped to his knees. His hands clawed helplessly at his hair, at his chest, at the air that refused to fill his lungs. His son, his child, the heartbeat he'd felt beneath Liana's skin. Gone. He had missed everything. Every last moment, every last chance, every last call. The grief slammed into him so violently that he doubled over, choking on the scream he couldn't hold back. A nurse knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder, but he didn't feel it. He didn't hear the doctor murmuring something about paperwork, about condolences. All he could hear was a ringing, sharp, endless, like the phantom vibration of a phone he should have answered. When he was finally allowed into Liana's room, he stood frozen at the doorway. Machines beeped softly around her pale, motionless body. Her belly was smaller now, empty in a way that tore something from his soul. He approached slowly, as if afraid she might break under the weight of his touch. He took her hand, which felt cold, so cold, and held it against his forehead. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice shredded. "I should have been there. I should have answered. I should have protected you, both of you." A tear slipped from the corner of her closed eye. Whether she heard him or the grief simply escaped her unconscious body, he didn't know. He pressed his forehead against her hand, shoulders shaking, whispering apologies into the quiet room that smelled of antiseptic and loss. "I missed his heartbeat," he sobbed. "I missed his goodbye. I missed everything." He stayed like that for hours, praying for her to open her eyes, praying for a chance to make things right, even though he knew nothing would ever erase what he'd cost them. Nothing would bring back the son whose last call for help had gone unanswered.